Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of Man to Man. I'm your host, Hugo Ribetika. Today we have a conversation about 101 reasons why your marriage may not be working, or why it should be working for that matter. In studio, Kidwell Ndhuku. Kidwell, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Always a pleasure, Hugo, to come for these conversations with you.
Now the reason that we've asked you to come on is because you've been married successfully for 39 years, and you've also, for the last 22 years, been advising couples that are getting ready to marry on what it is that they need to do to sustain those marriages. So let's start off with a look at the most common issues that men face in marriage.
Well, the most common issue that causes men's marriages not to work well is that in the early stages of marriage, although you said mine was successful, they feel emasculated and they feel not respected. The stages of marriage are important in that conversation because as you date, you are in the honeymoon phase. And unfortunately, during that phase, you don't discuss anything that is serious. You just enjoy life. You go to the movies, you go for pizza, you go for chicken in, you go for steers, and life carries on. You don't tackle, from a communication point of view, the difficult subjects, like how many children you're going to have. You don't tackle difficult subjects, like how are you going to handle your money. Most people want to have their own bank accounts, which are private to them, and they make a contribution to the marriage. Whereas marriage, by its nature, wants you to make it self-sacrificial. So to make it self-sacrificial, what we are calling the agape type of marriage situation for men, you have to sacrifice a lot. You have to love your partner when they've pissed you off, because it's a decision, it's not a feeling. So most people don't do that, and as a result, they go into marriage because you're not trained for marriage. You just go to the altar, you make your vows. After the bachelor's party, you are sozzled a bit, you just follow, you don't take it to heart. So the preparation is to make you understand what you're getting into and the different stages that come because of your different socialization processes as men and women. So three key things is the stages in marriage, it's what marriage is, and it's the differences between men and women.
So let's start off with those stages in marriage. What are the? I know the honeymoon phase is the one stage that you talked about. I'd imagine that's right at the top.
That's right at the top. When you begin dating, you straight away see this beautiful, gorgeous woman, and you go into the honeymoon phase. You can't stop thinking about her. You can't stop calling her. You can't stop wanting to be with her.
Does this honeymoon phase go into marriage, into the first few months or first few years of marriage?
The problem with marriage is that you realize your different socialization and your different values as soon as you get into the marriage. You actually ask yourself, did I actually meet this person and want to stay with them? Because then they start their reality starts coming through. If it's a man, they start throwing things around. They start wanting to impose certain values in the marriage. Similarly, the women as well, because they've come from a different background, they've come from different relationships with men, mainly with their fathers. So they also then see your weaknesses as a man, and they start now challenging those. So then you go to this next stage, which is realization. That's what comes immediately as you get into the marriage. You realize that the guy leaves the toilet seat up. When at your home it was always left down. You realize that they are squeezing the toothpaste tube the way that you are not used to. You realize that when they wake up when you've gone, they don't want to make the bed. They think it's a female chore. You realize that they don't want to boil water for coffee for you if you're a woman because of the different ways that you were raised. I personally was raised by a mother who was from the old school. So when I got to Gweru, any time of the day, even midnight, she would wake up and warm my food for me and make sure that I'm comfortable. So when you get married, don't expect your wife to be like your mother because they are coming from a different background. So that realization stage is what actually makes you start realizing certain things that you did not think about marriage. For most men, it's the respect aspect. They believe that their wives are emasculating them and they're not respecting them. Then they start bailing out, as it were, and not being there in the marriage.
Yeah, so you talked about expectations, and obviously that comes to communication, which is something that we're going to speak about a little bit later on. But I'll let you walk us through the other stages of marriage.
Yes. Then after realization, the next stage, because now you are there in the marriage, there's what you call the power struggle phase, which is also called rebellion. So you are trying to enforce what you are used to in the marriage. And the woman, unfortunately, is trying to enforce as well. So you are bound to start fighting. It's like forming a team. You form. The next stage there in the formation process is storming. When you form a team, even at work. So the storming stage comes in immediately. You put people together in a team, you have formed a team. The next stage, they want to impose their values into the team. And obviously storming, because everyone has got their own values. So marriage is exactly the same. You start getting rebellion, and in that rebellion, men think that they are being disrespected, and they think they are being emasculated. So they now want to go to be with their buddies, because there's less stress there, and to go back sometimes to women who are friends to them, because they don't give them as much pressure as in a marriage situation. They allow them to be themselves. So you find that's what happens during that storming phase. You find that someone now is at, you don't know Jean Temba. Jean Temba was a pub at Net One building. So the person would get carried away in Jean Temba. Suddenly he's getting home at 5 a.m. because he's feeling comfortable there. But then the wife can't accept that, because their father was not coming home at 5 a.m.
5 o'clock in the morning.
After midnight. So the struggle continues, because people have not been prepared for marriage. There's no lessons or lectures which prepare you for marriage, except us now, where we offer those to young couples, but from church, because they are given to us. Then we prepare them by giving them warnings and safeguards to say, if you do this, the reason is this. Therefore, it changes their perspective to marriage.
Okay, so a number of issues that we're going to talk about. You're watching Man to Man. I'm with Kidwell Ndhuku on the show today, and we're having a conversation about the perspectives on marriage, taking a look at some of the problems that men have. Don't go away. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Man to Man in conversation with Kidwell Ndhuku, and today we're chatting about marriage. And Kidwell, the numerous challenges that men have in marriage. Now, you're walking us through those various stages of marriage. We started off with the honeymoon phase, amongst others. Now, we just talked about rebellion. So what happens after the rebellion phase?
The thing is that if you survive marriage for the first 5 years, you are most likely now going to succeed. Because it's the 5 years. Once you go through that, you go to cooperation, reunion, explosion, and completion as the other stages. So you get now to understand each other, to cooperate in the marriage, to understand that in marriage, you need to have that self-sacrificial love, especially Christian marriage. Because in a Christian marriage, we're emphasizing the self-sacrificial love, because we're saying it's based on Christ. We know that if Christ had said to us, I'm not going to go onto the cross until you justify yourselves, then it was going to be self-sacrificial. What he said is that I'm going to die for these people when they are still sinners. So in a marriage situation, you show your love, the agape love, when you are pissed off. If you are a wife, when your husband has come at 3 a.m., that's the time to make a decision to love them. If your wife pisses you off, they burn the food. That very time is the time that you make a self-sacrificial love. You are loving them despite
The burnt food.
The burnt food, or the anger, whatever is making you angry, you are making a decision to love despite. Because that's what Christ did, isn't it? He came and died for us whilst we're still sinners. If he had waited for us to justify ourselves, he was not going to die for us.
Was never going to happen.
Yes.
Now the one issue you talked about before the break was something that speaks to communication in more ways than not. Where you said a man is trying to assert himself, and so is a woman, right? How do men navigate communication in this regard? Because obviously, if you're raised differently, the expectation is anticipated that, you know what, this is how we're going to do things because that's how you're raised. Yeah. You don't always think about, oh, but you know what, there's another side to it.
Yeah. Remember, there are many ways to kill a cat. There are 9 of them. All of them are right. So whereas you come from different backgrounds, the reason why we prepare you is so that you can see the red flags, the differences in people. So when you are talking to your wife, there are certain things which she says which means different things from what you grew up understanding. When she says the dishwasher is not working, she does not mean take time to fix it. She means fix it immediately. Because men are from Mars, women are from Venus. So people are different. When you understand your differences, even your communication style improves. If you understand that you can't communicate when you're angry, you're already halfway there.
So how do men deal though with the lack of communication, or communication that is Greek in more instances than not, where women say, but you should know, right?
No one knows.
Exactly. But
no one knows. So the reason why one of the major modules within the marriage preparation is communication. One is to tell you the differences between men and women, to tell you the fact that women are feeling people, whereas men are like practical people. One of the typical things is that when your wife comes from work and she's talking to you, because you are a practical person, you want to solve the problem that is coming out of her mouth. But women, by their nature, when they are talking to you, they want to be heard and understood. They don't want you to solve problems for them. So they'll say you are a good husband if you listen and confirm what they're saying and do absolutely nothing in terms of solving the problem. They've come from work. My boss said this, that. The inclination of a man is to say there's a problem, I need to solve it. But women don't want that. But most men think that when they say that, they want a problem solved. They want to be heard and understood. So you don't solve the problem.
So where do men get this information? Right?
From because preparation.
No, Kidwell. Yeah. Let's talk about the men that didn't prepare. And I think in an earlier conversation, one of the things you mentioned is that you went into marriage without
preparation.
Right?
Yes.
And a lot of the men that are watching this show may not necessarily be of the Christian religion, right? Yes. Or may not have gone through a process. I mean, they're traditional marriages. So when you're marrying somebody traditionally, there isn't a process ordinarily, right? Where you are sat down and you're prepared. So in the instance that you were in this space and you're faced with these challenges, where do you get that sort of information?
These days we are very fortunate because the world is flat because of the www, the internet. So if you don't get resources to help you, or if you don't read, you are already going towards disaster. You are going towards the statistic of the 60% we end up in divorce. So one of the critical things is what we are doing right now. Men to men, talking to each other, understanding that we don't know everything. You have to be prepared. You have to read. You have to go to YouTube and listen to men, so that you hear what we are saying, so that you are ready for that next stage. There are no lessons from marriage. You have to get them out of other people. If you are not religious, you get them from YouTube, you get them from reading resources. That's why books are written. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. What does that mean? Let me read and understand so that I become an effective husband. So these days the resources are many. There are audio books which you can listen to on marriage whilst you are going away. There are people like Steve Harvey who talk about bank accounts. They are asked during shows, how should we run our finances as a married couple?
That was going to be my next question, actually, which speaks to the stress around being the primary financial provider in a family, and the level of difficulty it is to do that or maintain it. And obviously the issues around this is how much I earn, we share a common bank account, let's have a budget. I mean, how common is that in couples?
It's very uncommon. Most couples, they want to take, they'll say you are responsible for the rent and the fees because you are the man. I'll do the groceries and things like that. But I think the video by Steve Harvey, it takes away the emasculation and the disrespect relating to money, that you should have 4 accounts. The account for your fixed costs, the investment account, then the critical accounts now, the personal account that you both decide that this is for the man and this is for the woman. And how they spend that money to show respect and that they've got human dignity. You don't ask, you don't have to explain that you bought coffee, that you bought a beer, because you are a human being. You are created in the image of God. I'm bringing back to that. So those 4 accounts make you put into common accounts and agree your no fuss spend.
All right.
We are not going to be asked, because that then gives you the dignity that you want to have in a marriage situation.
I'd like you to hold that thought. We are going to come back and talk a little bit more about finances, and especially you look at how culture can play a part in how men and women deal with finances in marriage. You watch a Man to Man. We're back in a moment. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Man to Man, and I'm chilling with Kidwell, having a conversation around what it's like to run a successful marriage, or certainly some of the challenges that men face. We were talking finance and how big is finance in sustaining a good marriage, or at least the correct, right collaboration around how to handle finances in a family. And you were walking us through the suggestion, the 4 accounts suggested by Steve Harvey.
Money is around trust in a marriage. So if people don't know what is happening to their partner's money, it's an issue of trust. One of the biggest things about marriage is based on trust and playing with your cards on the table. That's why those 4 accounts by Steve Harvey puts everything in terms of money on the table. You've got all your fixed costs together, an account for the fixed costs. Because you want your future secured, you've got an investment account. Then to show respect to each other, you agree on a certain amount of money that won't be asked. If the wife decides to go and do her hair, she does not have to account for that money coming from her personal account. Because then the same happens with the man. If he decides to go and have a drink, he should be able to, because it gives him dignity, isn't it? So money has got the dignity side. But if you don't trust each other now, people are constantly asking each other, this money, where did it go? That money, where did it go? Then again with men, it's a sign of emasculation and disrespect. Someone is asking you. That's why that structure of accounts by Steve Harvey works majorly.
So it sounds reasonable. It sounds like the logical thing to do, right? But many men in this country, many men across the continent, never mind the rest of the world, are not wired that way. Right? So how important is it to a successful marriage for men to rewire, rejig how they think, and follow, for instance, this 4-account proposal by Steve Harvey?
It's not a natural for our African culture to do that. Most men want, especially if they are the main breadwinner, they want to be in control. But then that now causes mistrust in the marriage, isn't it? Because if I don't know where your money is going now, we've got the issues now which are very prevalent. especially in our country, Zimbabwe, the small house syndrome. Because now, how does your wife know how many other families you are creating outside because of the resources that are not on the table? Remember what I'm saying is that marriage is based on trust. Once that trust moves away, you are already sleeping with one eye open because the trust is no longer there. And once the trust is no longer there, to be quite honest, for all intents and purposes, the marriage is no longer there. The people will stay together, but even if infidelity comes in, it's coming from that point of view that there is no trust in the marriage. If you suspect without any evidence that your wife is seeing other people, and you come into the pub and tell other men, they'll tell you the easiest way to solve that problem is for you to see other women. You understand what I'm saying? It becomes tit for tat. Then the same with women. If they think that you are seeing other women, they also might decide to see other men. So the trust element is important, because the two things that cause most divorces, we remember 60% of marriages end up in divorce. It's money and lack of trust and infidelity. So those things, they lead to divorce.
So you've got the situation where you and your wife don't have these conversations around money, and all of a sudden she decides, dude, where's your money going, right? Or I've just met up with my friends and their husbands put everything on the table, and they have the 4 accounts. Now, part of that is obviously getting counseling, right? Seeing a counselor who will explain that to you. But there's also stigma associated with counseling. How do we make counseling more acceptable, more appealing to men?
Well, the one thing that we tell men is that we are all damaged goods.
Why?
So therapy is a way to go, even for men, no matter how strong you are, because your background and how you grew up, you received a lot of hurts and a lot of problems that in the future they manifest in your marriage. Whatever happened in your house of origin will manifest one way or the other in your marriage. So therapy and counseling, especially in the 21st century, is a thing that you have to do as a man or a woman, because it then unbundles where some of that behavior that is coming into a marriage is coming from.
So does counseling have to be with a paid professional? Can it be with a group of friends? Can it be with your buddies that you play boozers football with, or guys you play golf or tennis with?
Yes. Counseling can be anywhere, because remember, it's advice and it's a sounding board. So if you're not comfortable going to the doctors, I can't mention them by name for professional reasons. If you can't go there, your friends are your first sounding board. We're playing golf together, you're having problems with your wife or with your family, with your children. Your first source of advice are the people that you hang out with, the people you play boozers with, the people you play golf with, the people you trust that they'll give you good counsel. Because remember, there are 2 types of people. That's why we in the preparation we say, once you're married, hang out with married men. Because if I'm single and you come to me for counseling, I'll probably attract you by saying you made a mistake in the first place by getting married. I'll say, come to us here where there is no problem. The statistic that many men between 15 and 49 have never been married. So that statistics comes back. Those who have not been married think they are living a good life, isn't it? So they'll advise you to go back to being unmarried. And that is a source of divorce for you. So when you are married, the first key thing is most of the people you hang around with should be married as well. Then we can counsel each other. And you can caution each other. When you are drinking and it's going past midnight, it's only another married man. You say, guys, let's go home. But if you're hanging with me and I'm single, I want us to hit the next pub that is happening. I say, let's go to Pablo's. These days it starts at 12 midnight. So let's go there and have a better time. When you find what I was saying, that you come out of Jantemba when people are already sweeping downstairs at 5 a.m. because you've been carried away. Then going home becomes a difficult
task because he's been out all night. So it happens. This is reality I'm talking about. That's why Londoners closes at after 5 a.m. So if you get carried away when you are there with single people, they won't own you. But if you're a married man, midnight they'll say, let's go home. So it's a lived experience for most people. So it's critical to maintain the trust, finance, and also in terms of infidelity.
Numerous issues that we could go through as we continue to unpack for you what marriage is all about, and certainly some of the things that you need to look out for. You've been watching Man to Man. I was chatting with Kidwell Ndhuku, married for 39 years and giving advice to would-be marrieds for the last 22 years. Tune in for part 2 of this conversation on Man to Man.